the reinforced alloy walls of Devon. Hale's shelter groaned and flexed like the hull of a sinking ship as the storm raged outside. Wind howled across the barren plains of Kepler 914b, dragging jagged shards of rock and sheets of toxic rain through. The darkness. Each blast of air sounded like a living thing trying to tear the shelter apart. A predator with endless hunger. Inside, the lights flickered under the strain of the storm's surge, casting erratic shadows across steel walls, scarred by months of repairs. Devon sat hunched over his console, one eye on the atmospheric readings and the other on the power reserves. Both were dropping faster than he liked. 8 months on this frozen, methane-choked hellscape had taught him to be patient, cautious, and always ready to lose what little he had left. The scar that ran from his jaw to his temple, a gift from a plasma shard years ago, throbbed faintly, the ache matching the pulse of the storm. He ran a hand through his sweat-dampened hair, reminding himself to breathe. He wasn't supposed to be here. He should have been on a terraforming crew by now, working a safe colony job on the outer rim. But fate had other plans. A transport failure, a crash landing, and the cold arithmetic of survival. Every day since had been the same. Wake, repair, scavenge, repeat. Until rescue came or didn't. A dull thud jolted him upright. The kind of sound no survivor wants to hear when the storm is bad enough to peel plating from rock. His heart thumped as he turned toward the airlock, the reinforced door rattling faintly. Another impact came, heavier, deliberate, not debris. Something was trying to get in. Not possible, Devon muttered under his breath, already moving. He grabbed his plasma rifle from its wall mount, the familiar weight steadying his nerves. The third strike came with a screech of stressed metal. He edged closer, boots crunching against grit as he peered through the narrow viewport. Lightning split the sky beyond the lock, a silver flash that burned his vision, and in that brief illumination he saw it. A figure, hunched against the storm, framed in whirling debris and rain. Humanoid, but not human. Fur plastered to a powerful frame, black as the void, with a long tail lashing violently in the gale. And then the eyes luminous amber, locking. With his for a fraction of a second, Devon's pulse kicked hard. This world had predators, sure, but nothing that looked like this. Not upright, not armed, not intelligent. Yet here it was, clawed hands braced against his door like it knew exactly where to find him. The lock screamed under the next blow. Then silence, broken only by the storm. The figure sagged, one arm slipping away, its weight dragging across the hatch. It wasn't attacking. It was collapsing. Instinct warred with reason. Opening that door meant death acid winds, methane floods, system contamination. But leaving whatever that was to die felt like a sin even in this godforsaken place. Before he could decide, the choice was made for him. The locking mechanism shrieked and split, and the reinforced hatch buckled inward, ripping free with a scream of tearing metal. Toxic air rushed in like a living wave, choking and burning his lungs. Devon dropped his visor in place and braced for a fight, but there was no fight. No lunge. No attack. The figure stumbled through the shattered lock, streaming water and blood, and collapsed hard onto the steel floor. And before Devon could raise his weapon, it did something that froze him to the core. It curled in on itself, tail wrapping tight around its legs, and nestled against the floor like an exhausted animal seeking warmth. Like this had always been its spot. Devon's breath caught behind his visor as he stared down at the alien intruder lying helpless at his feet, amber eyes fluttering shut. In that moment, with the storm howling like a beast outside, Devon realized his world had just changed forever. The storm clawed at the broken airlock, howling like a hungry void beast. Devon slammed the emergency seals into place, his fingers moving on instinct while his mind reeled. The contaminated air purifier roared to life, sucking the poison atmosphere from his shelter, one desperate breath at a time. Only when the red hazard light flickered to amber did he dare lower his visor. The stench of acid rain and scorched metal still lingered, sharp enough to burn the back of his throat. And then his eyes went to her. She lay where she had fallen, a dark shape against a pale steel floor, motionless except for the faint rise and fall of her chest. Her fur black, but striped faintly with silver, where the emergency lights struck, was slick with rain, clinging to muscle that spoke of power and speed. Her tail twitched once, curling tighter around her body like an unconscious reflex. Devon's gut nodded. He wasn't looking at a mindless predator. No beast curled up like that. No beast had those eyes intelligent, burning amber. Even if now they were closed dot, and then he saw the blood dot, it pooled dark against her side, seeping from slashes deep enough to show glistening tissue beneath. Another burn plasma by the look of it charred a jagged line across her shoulder plate. The remnants of armor clung to her body, torn and warped like tin after a storm. Whoever she'd fought, they'd meant to kill her. Devon tightened his grip on the rifle. He could end this now. One clean shot. Safer that way. But something about the way she'd folded in on herself stopped him cold. Not a threat. Not now. Just a living thing, beaten and bleeding, clinging to life by instinct alone. And God help him, he couldn't leave her like that dot with a low curse. Devon set the rifle down and dragged his medkit from the wall. His boots thudded softly as he crossed the floor and knelt beside her. Up close, she was. Breathtaking in a way that made no sense. Wild, fierce, beautiful in the way a storm front was beautiful, dangerous. Untamed, impossible to ignore. Her breathing hitched as he touched her side. The sound sent a shiver down his spine. He worked quickly, slicing away the shredded armor to expose the worst of the wounds. The gashes were clean blades, not claws. Professional work. Whoever had done this knew how to kill her kind. She stirred when he pressed the first sealant patch over her ribs. A low, guttural sound rumbled from her chest to growl. No, it wasn't. Hostile. Something softer, deeper. Her head shifted toward him, and those amber eyes cracked open like molten gold spilling into the room. They locked on his face, unblinking, unmistakably aware. Easy, Devon murmured, his voice low as he moved to the next wound. I'm not here to hurt you. A whisper of sound slipped from her lips' language, but nothing he understood. Musical, almost. Notes curling like smoke, threaded with a vibration he felt in his bones more than his ears. She flinched when he touched her dislocated arm. Devon braced her shoulder, gritting his teeth as he worked it back into place with a sharp pop. She hissed then, to his shock. Her clawed hand shot up and gripped his wrist, not crushing, just holding. A pulse of heat through her palm, steady and strong, anchoring him in that moment. The growl came again, softer this time, rolling into a sound almost like a purr as he finished the bindings. And then, with the faintest sigh, her eyes slid shut. Devon sat back on his heels, breath unsteady. Outside, the storm roared on, rattling the walls like a beast in chains. Inside, an alien woman slept on his floor, her scent curling through the recycled air-wild earth, and something warm, alive, dangerously comforting. He stared down at her, the weight of what he'd just done pressing hard in his chest. He'd chosen her. Over reason. Over safety. And when the proximity alarm suddenly began to wail shrill, insistent, impossible to ignore, Devon's blood ran cold. Something else was coming. Asterisk. The proximity alarm's shriek cut through the shelter like a blade. Devon spun toward the console, heart hammering, eyes scanning the flickering holo display. 3 signatures burned crimson against the grid, fast-moving, closing in from the east. Not rescue ships. He didn't need the IFF readouts to tell him that. Their energy signatures screamed military-grade hardware. Too small for transports, too heavy for scouts, gunships, corporate design. He'd seen their like before on Black Ops missions years ago, when his job was cleaning up problems no one wanted in the news. And now they were coming for him. Or for her. Devon's gaze slid to the alien woman curled on his floor. Still unconscious, her chest rising and falling in slow, steady rhythm. The emergency blankets draped over her glistened. Faintly in the dim light, dark fur damp and clinging to the sculpted lines of muscle beneath. Her tail lay coiled against her legs, twitching once as if sensing danger even in sleep. He crossed the room in 2 strides, crouched, and touched her shoulder. "Hey, wake up." Amber eyes snapped open, glowing like molten metal in the gloom. She didn't flinch, didn't panic. She just looked at him sharp, alert, reading the fear he couldn't quite hide. Another alarm pulse. Closer now. 10 clicks out. "They're coming," Devon said, pointing to the scanner. He didn't know why language was still a wall between them, but some instinct said she'd understand. And judging by the way her ears flicked back and her pupils narrowed to slits, she did. Asterisk. She moved fast. Too fast for someone who'd been bleeding out minutes ago. Rising fluidly to her knees, she scanned the shelter in a heartbeat, then fixed those burning eyes on him. Words spilled from her lips, alien syllables, threaded with urgency. "Slow down," Devon muttered, frustration spiking. He held up a hand, then jabbed a finger toward the door, mimed an explosion, and crossed his arms in an X. "Bad guys. Coming here." "Got it?" She stared at him for half a second then. Nodded once. Sharp. Precise. Then she did something that made his pulse kick. She reached over her shoulder and drew a blade. Sleek. Curved. Humming with barely contained energy. It had been sheathed against her back, beneath what was left of her armor, hidden until now. And from the way her claws flexed as she gripped. She knew exactly how to use it. "Great," Devon muttered, checking the charge on his plasma rifle. "Guess we're doing this together." Outside, the storm screamed like a living thing. Through the reinforced viewport, lightning ripped across the sky, stark white against the ink-black clouds. The gunship's running lights flickered in the ice. Distant ghostly glimmers swallowed by rain. Devon killed the shelter's lights, plunging them into near darkness. Only the red glow of emergency strips lit the walls. He powered down the main systems, fingers flying over the console to activate the stealth grid, a crude patchwork of dampeners he'd scavenged months ago. It wouldn't hold under a deep scan, but it might buy them time. The alien god, he needed a name for her, moved like a shadow, silent and sure. She slinked to the far wall, positioning herself near the breach where the door had torn free earlier. Her blade pulsed faint blue, casting spectral light across her face. For a moment, Devon just watched her. The storm painted her in silver and shadow, every line of her body radiating coiled strength. He felt a surge of something hot and electric curl through his chest, something he didn't have the luxury to name. The console chirped softly. His gut turned to ice. They'd stopped moving, hovering now. Scanners sweeping. Devon's jaw tightened. If they picked up heat signatures aloft. Sound broke the silence. Not the storm. Not the alarms. Her voice. Low. Musical. A string of syllables that flowed like water. Thick with meaning he couldn't parse, but the tone. He knew that tone. It was a promise. Or a vow. Her eyes found his, and for the first time she spoke a word he almost understood. One word, shaped carefully, as if it mattered more than anything. Devon. His name. Before he could respond, the scanner blared a warning. They'd found the shelter. The first blast hit like a hammer, ripping the outer barricade into molten shards. The walls trembled, dust sifting from the ceiling. A second detonation followed, closer, harder. Devon swung his rifle into position, adrenaline spiking. "They're here," he said, voice raw as lightning lit the sky beyond the shattered lock. At his side, the alien rose from the shadows like a living blade, her amber eyes burning, her lips curling back to bare sharp teeth in a grin that was all war. Asterisk, the third explosion hit like a sledgehammer, ripping the world apart in a flash of white fire and molten shards. The airlock disintegrated, and the storm roared inside, a screaming vortex of acid rain and shrieking wind that drove needles of ice-cold death across Devon's skin. His shelter, the one thing keeping him alive for 8 months, was now a splintered wreck bleeding sparks and smoke into the toxic night. Figures surged through the breach like wraiths. Armored shapes hunched against the storm, plasma rifles, blazing arcs of blue light, corporate hunters. Their helmets gleamed under the strobe of lightning, their faces hidden behind black visors that reflected nothing, not even the lives they were about to take. Devon dropped behind the overturned supply crate just as the first volley shredded the wall where he'd been standing. Sparks spat across the floor, stinging his arms. His heart slammed against his ribs like it wanted out. He'd seen these bastards before. Clean-up crews, kill squads. They weren't here to negotiate. He raised his rifle and fired. The recoil slammed into his shoulder. The plasma burst hissing through the rain-heavy air. It punched into the chest plate of the lead hunter, staggering him back into the breach with a shower of sparks. But another silhouette filled the gap instantly, weapon tracking for Devon's skull. Then the alien moved. She was a blur of midnight and steel, bursting from the shadows with a sound like tearing silk and a voice that rolled into a feral snarl. Her energy blade ignited in a surge of azure light, carving the storm into ribbons. In one fluid strike, she split the hunter's weapon clean in half, sparks showering like a second lightning strike. Her next swing opened his chest plate like paper. Devon barely had time to breathe before the third one lunged. He fired again, catching the bastard in the shoulder, then rolled, slamming his back against the wall. His breath came hard, fogging in the cold air as another blast scorched the ground where his head had been. The alien Christ, what was her name, moved like water over stone. She flowed, every strike a dance of precision and fury. Blue arcs scythed through the dark as her twin blades, when had she drawn the second one, spun in lethal harmony. Armor plates cracked. Metal screamed. Blood hissed as it hit the acidic floor. Devon couldn't look away. Even as he fired short, brutal bursts dropping another hunter, his eyes tracked her. The storm haloed her in silver light, rain streaking down her fur, tail whipping behind her like a banner of war. She was grace and violence, beauty sharpened into something primal. "Behind you," Devon roared, shoving up from cover. He fired, the bolt taking a hunter square in the neck, just as its blade would have carved into her spine. The corpse dropped at her feet, steam curling from the wound. She turned then, amber eyes locking on his, glowing with something raw and electric. She held his gaze for a breath that felt like forever, then gave a short, sharp nod. An acknowledgement. A promise. The shelter shook again, another blast, this one peeling the roof open to the raging sky. Wind screamed through the gap, ripping at everything not bolted down. Acid rain burned where it splattered Devon's arm, but he didn't stop moving. Neither did she. Too many. He shouted over the storm, scanning the readout on his rifle. Almost dry. His gut nodded. "We can't hold here." She hissed a sound of agreement, defiance, then gestured sharply toward the shattered breach, toward the storm outside. "You want to run out there?" Devon stared at her like she'd lost her damn mind. Her only answer was a grin feral, bright with teeth and a single word, shaped in the rough cadence of his language. Run? Before he could argue, she moved. A black streak through the ruin, blades spinning arcs of blue fire as she carved a path into the storm. Devon cursed under his breath and followed. They hit the breach together. Acid rain lashed his visor, wind, clawing at his lungs as the toxic sky tore itself apart overhead. Hunters swarmed outside, their armor gleaming like oil in the stormlight. Devon's plasma rifle spat one last burst, dropping the nearest before the power cell died in his hands. Then she was there again, covering him like a living storm. Her blades weaved a deadly lattice of light, and Devon, God help him, felt something like exhilaration surge in his veins. Two species, two strangers, fighting as one against the night. The last thing he saw before the storm swallowed them both was her face, streaked with blood and rain, eyes burning like twin suns in the chaos eyes that promised this was only the beginning. ChatGPT said. Storm had swallowed the world whole. Wind tore at the jagged cliffs like a living thing, shrieking as it funneled through canyons and ripped across the shattered plains. Acid rain hissed where it struck stone, carving tiny rivers that steamed into nothing. Devon stumbled into a hollow cut deep into the ridge, his boots scraping over black rock slick with rain. His lungs burned under the filter mask, and every muscle in his body screamed from the fight and the sprint that followed. He collapsed against the far wall, dragging in ragged breaths as his visor fogged. Behind him, she appeared silent as a shadow despite the storm. Her blades were gone, sheathed across her back, but her presence filled the space like a second heartbeat. Water streamed from her fur in thin rivulets, catching the faint blue glow from his helmet light. She didn't seem winded, just watchful. Devon peeled off the visor, coughing against the acrid taste still clinging to his throat. For a moment, they just stared at each other, the only sound the muffled roar of the storm beyond the hollow and the hammer of his pulse in his ears. She moved first. Crossing the space in 3 graceful steps, she crouched in front of him, amber eyes sharp and unblinking. Her head tilted slightly, studying the gash on his arm where a fragment of shrapnel had bitten through the suit. I'm fine, he rasped, though the blood soaking his sleeve made a liar of him. She ignored his words. With a low growl soft, almost a rumble in her chest, she tore a strip of fabric from what remained of her ruined armor and pressed it firmly to the wound. The scent of her wild earth and something faintly metallic wrapped around him as she leaned close, fingers surprisingly deft for hands tipped with claws. Devon swallowed hard. Thanks, he muttered, unsure why his voice sounded rougher than usual. Her ears twitched at the sound, and then, God help him, she spoke. One word, clear, careful. Devon. His heart stuttered. His name, shaped in her voice like something new and strange. Yeah, he said softly. That's me. He hesitated, then pointed to her, brow furrowed. You? She blinked once, then twice. Her tail flicked. Finally, she touched her chest with a clawed hand and spoke, voice rolling like low thunder. Sarah. Devon repeated it, slow. Sci-Ra. Her eyes glimmered approval, maybe, or amusement. She said it again, more fluid this time, and then his name once more, a soft purr under the syllables that made his skin prickle. Something shifted then, subtle, the kind of moment you didn't plan for, didn't see coming. Just a silence thick enough to hear the storm's rage outside, broken only by the rhythm of their breathing. Sarah's hand lingered at his arm, claws retracted now, the pads of her fingers warm against his skin. She tilted her head, close enough, that he could see every fine line of silver threading through the black of her fur, every fleck of gold in those amber eyes. Her voice came again, low and certain, carrying meaning even if he didn't understand every word. Devon. Mine. The sound hit him like a punch and a caress all at once. He froze not out of fear, but something deeper, heavier. Before he could process it, Sarah shifted closer, sliding down to sit beside him in the narrow space, her tail curling around her legs, and then around his. A slow, deliberate coil that spoke more clearly than any language barrier could. Devon's breath hitched. His first instinct was to move to pull back, but her warmth bled into him like fire against the cold, and when the storm's icy wind knifed through the hollow, he didn't move at all. Instead, he let her press closer, felt the weight of her against his shoulder, her head resting near his jaw. Her purr was a vibration more than a sound, thrumming through the stone, through his bones, through the emptiness he hadn't realized was eating him alive until now. For the first time in months, Devon felt something other than survival clawing at his insides. He felt not alone, and it terrified him more than any storm. The moment shattered with a sudden crackle from his cum. Static, and a voice harsh, metallic, all too human. Devon Hall, we know you're alive. Stand down and surrender the asset. The word asset made his stomach twist. He didn't need translation to know who they meant. His eyes flicked to Sarah, and she was already watching him, ears flat, teeth bared in a soundless snarl. Outside, engines roared, slicing through the storm like wolves on the hunt. Found them. Asterisk, the voice cut through the storm like a blade, sharp and cold, dripping with the authority of men who believed they owned everything, including lives. Devon Hawley. It crackled again through the cum, louder now, distortion, lacing. The edges. Stand down, surrender the target, and this ends. Deliver her, and you go home. Food, heat, earth, all yours. Home. The word struck deep, hollowing him out. For 8 months, that single thought had kept him alive. Every repair, every day. Scraping by in the dark belly of Kepler 914b had been for that dream. Home. Devon stared at the cum panel, jaw clenched, and slowly turned his head. Sarah was watching him. Not blinking. Not breathing hard, even after the run and the fight. Her body radiated quiet readiness, a coiled spring of muscle and fury. But her eyes held something else. Not fear. Not quite, something heavier. Like she knew this moment. Like she'd lived it before seeing others choose and fall short. The storm howled outside, ripping at the hollow like it wanted to pry them out and offer them up. Devon could feel the vibration of engines beneath it now, a low thrum rolling through the stone. They were close. He dragged a hand through his wet hair, exhaling hard. Damn it, they could end this now. All he had to do was step outside, hands up, Sarah behind him in a pair of corporate restraints. They'd pull him into a warm cabin, wrap him in blankets, pump him full of real food, and send him spinning back toward the blue curve of Earth. And what about her? Asset. That's what they'd called her. Not a name. Not a person. Asset. He didn't need to guess what happened to assets. He'd been on the other end of those missions. He'd seen the facilities. The cages. His stomach turned. Devon. The sound of his name in her voice snapped his gaze to her. She'd moved closer, silent as shadow, crouching low in the narrow hollow until they were face to face. Her eyes burned like molten gold in the gloom. He swallowed. You don't understand what they're offering. Her head tilted, slow. A question without words. They can take me home. The words rasped out like broken glass. He almost hated how raw they sounded. 8 months. Sarah. Alone. Waiting. Freezing. Hoping. This was never supposed to be. He cut off as her hand came up, pressing to his chest. Not hard. Just enough to still him. Her claws were retracted, fingers warm, firm, anchoring him like roots in a storm. Her voice came low, a string of sounds he didn't know, but understood anyway, because of the tone, the weight, the way her amber eyes never looked away. Then one word rose from the murmur, clear as a blade drawn in silence. Mine. Something broke loose inside him. Like a cable snapping under too much strain. The cum crackled again. 30 seconds, Holly, or we burn you out. Devon's hands curled into fists, then opened, then curled again. He turned, jaw tight, and yanked the main console's panel off the wall. The exposed circuits spat sparks under his fingers as he ripped the fail-safe leads free. Sarah watched without a word as he jammed the core's override pin into place, flipping the containment locks on the shelter's power cell. The timer began, counting down in angry red letters. 0:30. You want her? Devon snarled under his breath. Come and get her. He slung the rifle across his back, grabbed his pack with one hand, and reached for Sarah with the other. Her fingers met his in a grip that was all heat and steel and promise. They ran. The blast tore the world apart behind them. White fire bloomed, like a newborn star, swallowing the shelter in a roar that shook the sky. Shockwaves chased them through the storm, flinging shards of molten alloy into the black rain. Devon didn't look back. Couldn't. The ridge fell away into chaos-wind, howling acid rain hissing down like burning needles. Through it all, Sarah led him, swift and sure, her silhouette a slash of living shadow against the flicker of lightning. Then, through the maelstrom, Devon saw it cold silver shapes dropping from the clouds ahead. Sleek, predatory, ships, but not human. Sarah slowed, turning to face him. Her fur plastered to her skin, rain streaming down her jaw, eyes bright as suns. She reached up, cupped his face in both hands, and spoke, soft and certain, each word a drumbeat in his bones. Come with me. Behind them, corporate voices roared through the cum, ragged and furious. Ahead, alien ships cut through the dark like blades. Devon met Sarah's gaze and realized the truth in the hollow of his chest. Home wasn't Earth anymore. He nodded once. Yeah, he said, voice low, breaking in the wind. I'm coming. Her answering sound was a growl and a laugh, and something that felt like victory. The storm swallowed them whole as they ran toward the waiting ships, the sky alive with fire and thunder. The storm was a living wall of fury as Sarah pulled Devon toward the waiting ships. Acid rain seared where it struck his exposed gear, hissing on metal like venom, but he didn't slow. Not when the glow of alien craft split the black horizon like shards of another world. The first ship loomed above them, sleek, predatory, humming with an energy that prickled across his skin. Its ramp yawned open, spilling a wash of cold blue. Light into the storm. And out of that light stepped figures tall, armored in matte plates that seemed to drink the lightning. Their eyes glowed the same molten amber as Sarah's, but harder, sharper, like the storm itself had teeth. Weapons hung ready in clawed hands, humming with lethal promise. They fanned out in a semicircle, boots hissing against scorched rock. Devon felt the weight of their gazes hit like a physical force. They weren't just soldiers, they were predators. Judging prey. Sarah slowed, her tail lashing low, body shifting into a stance Devon didn't need translation for. Protective. Her blades were sheathed, but her posture screamed challenge. One of the figures stepped forward, bigger than the rest. His fur streaked with silver, his face carved in lines of command and war. His voice rolled out over the storm, deep and resonant, words slicing like knives in a language Devon didn't understand, but didn't need to. The tone said everything. Who is this human, and why is he touching you? Sarah answered, her voice, sharp as broken glass. Her hands moved in quick gestures, her tail curling high. She spoke his name, Devon, like a blade slammed into the table, then followed it with a string of syllables that made every warrior's ears flick back. The leader's gaze slid to Devon. He could feel it, like the edge of a knife tracing his throat. Lightning flared, painting the world in silver fire, and for an instant the storm went silent in Devon's head. All he heard was the low growl rumbling in the air between them, the sense that a wrong move would end with his blood on. The stone. Asterisk. Then Sarah did something that made the air snap like a live wire. She stepped closer, pressed herself against him, claws sliding gently over his arm, not as a threat, but as something primal and possessive. Her head tipped up, eyes burning into his, and when she spoke, her voice cut through wind and thunder like a blade through silk. Mine. Not whispered. Declared. The effect was instant. The warriors tensed, fur bristling, weapons humming louder. The leader's lips peeled back in what might have been a snarl or a grim smile. His next words came slow, deliberate, rolling like thunder across the ridge. One word, though, carried in its weight even without meaning. A challenge. Sarah stiffened. Then she bared her teeth in a grin that looked like defiance and death in the same breath. Devon didn't understand the language, but he understood the stakes. This was judgment. Prove himself or die where he stood. His pulse slammed in his ears as he stepped forward, breaking the circle of blue light. The warriors shifted, claws twitching toward triggers, but he didn't stop. He looked the leader dead in those ember-glow eyes, let the storm scour fear out of his bones, and spoke the only truth that mattered. I don't know your laws. I don't know your words. But I know this. He reached back, found Sarah's hand, and locked it in his. I'll fight for her. Die for her if I have to. She's not my asset. She's my home. Sarah translated, or maybe she didn't need to. Maybe the fire in his eyes said enough. For a long, brutal moment, silence held. Then the leader's jaw shifted, and what passed for a smile cut like a scar across his face. He spoke a single word that rippled through the ranks, like a tremor. Approval. Weapons lowered. The tension eased, but not by much. The leader turned, barking orders. Warriors moved, swift and silent, clearing a path to the ship. Sarah's tail curled around Devon's leg as she pulled him up the ramp with a sharp tug. Her grip iron and warm. The interior hit him like a second-world cold steel. Veins glowing with alien circuitry, walls humming with energy that felt alive. Sarah didn't let go of his hand. Not once. Then, as the ramp sealed and the storm vanished in a muffled roar, Devon saw it. The tactical display stretched across the forward bulkhead, a map of stars glowing in spectral blue. Dozens of systems marked. Dozens crossed out in crimson. And there, hanging like a wound at the edge of the chart earth, tagged in bright, pulsing red. His stomach dropped through the deck. Sarah followed his gaze. Her claws brushed his wrist as her voice came soft in his ear, a whisper that curled like smoke and steel. War, she said, in perfect human standard. The ship shuddered, engines screaming as it ripped skyward, leaving fire and ruin in its wake. Devon stared at that single red mark burning on the display, heart hammering, and understood the truth too late. He hadn't just chosen her. He'd chosen a side. And Earth was on the other one. The end.